The Wellness Show, episode number 362.
Welcome to The Wellness Show, a podcast on health and wealth. I'm your host, Tyson Bannigan, the founder of the Extraordinary Healing Arts Academy. Join me as we get the latest insight, tips, and strategies from wellness providers, coaches, and successful, heart-centered entrepreneurs, and much, much more.
Hello. Welcome to The Wellness Show on Health, Wealth, and Enlightenment. And here's my co-host, Laura. It's a brand new day here, and welcome to the show. This is a phone-in live show. We're going to talk about many, many topics. We're going to get a little bit more organized here. We're going to have a topic of the day that we're going to talk about, and then we're going to open the lines up for you to phone in and ask your questions, all questions about dowsing, energy healing, what's up in your life and what's up on planet Earth on this extraordinary time of personal planetary transformation. All that's fair game. So let's get the show started. And thanks for showing up. And if you're watching this show, if you wouldn't mind taking the link and broadcasting it to your network, we greatly appreciate it. The more people that we can have involved in this show, the more people can learn to take back their personal power, stand in their truth, and deliver their awesome gifts to the world. And the ultimate result of this is we get to live in a far more humane world. And who doesn't want that? So anyway, the show is now open. And so, Laura, what are we talking about today?
Well, we wanted to talk about your Tuesday night show that you did with
and you wanted
Shelley.
to talk about the deep clearing protocol, didn't you?
Yep, the deep cleaning protocol. Yep.
Okay, so do you want to start with the deep clearing protocol?
Sure.
What is the deep clearing protocol? Why, people are coming onto the show, they don't have a clue what you're talking about.
This is the front of the deep cleaning protocol, and it's 64
Clearing statements.
clear statements. There we go. Clearing statements that clear you and your energetic field of anything that isn't resonating at 100% light. So anything that may be in your energy field that's blocking you from becoming the best person that you can possibly be. But when I was meditating this morning, I was given some information that makes sense because I've been asking, why do we have some clients that have challenges with the deep cleaning protocol? Challenges in the aspect of that they continue to have dark thoughts or bad dreams or paranormal experiences, one might say. And it came to me that it's because they don't trust themselves. The one thing that I know for myself is that I trust God, I trust myself 100%. And when I didn't, pardon?
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Isn't it true though that you didn't always feel this way? Isn't this really a recent development? I
did, and then I had this period of time in my life where I was being what I call psychically attacked. And you're right. I stopped trusting myself. I never not trusted God, but I stopped trusting myself. And then when I started doing the deep cleaning protocol, I would call you and you'd be like, Laura, you're the boss. You've got this. And then the trust in myself grew and grew and grew and grew. And now it's back to where it was prior to what I call my dark night of the soul, what I had to go through in order for God to know that I really am there for him. And I don't want to go into the darkness and make $1 billion and, work for the dark side and allow these dark things to take over. So that being said, what I was told today is that one needs to trust oneself. And how does that happen as you're going through the deep cleaning protocol and you have fear that creeps up that perhaps what you're doing is wrong, or we had one caller that said, I want to know 100% forever and ever that that I'm going to be protected and that these dark things aren't going to come and say things to me, right? And you said, well, don't use the pendulum as a Ouija board, right? That was one of your one of your comments to the caller. And so that again is about trusting self and knowing. And when we look at the whole perspective of what's going on in the world today right now, really what we're all asking ourselves, and what Tyhson and I are asking you, is to trust yourself, to go within inside of yourself, to ask yourself what's true and what's not true, to ask yourself to not listen to us. If something that we say does not feel right, don't listen to us. We've said that over and over and over on this show. And so again, I want to reiterate that this show, we're here to guide you down a path of light in how we see it. But again, if it doesn't feel right to you, don't watch us, don't listen to us, and please follow your own path. If you're interested in what it is that we're saying, and some of it rings true, and you feel like listening to us and gaining some different kinds of knowledge or more knowledge for yourself, then trust yourself again. And that's the whole point of the deep cleaning protocol, is trusting yourself again, figuring out what's inside of yourself and what's true for you, and becoming that free, sovereign human being.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. Yeah, I think, if you are familiar with the tarot deck, then the card that really represents me, and I think some way for Laura, is we're the hermit. We're the one with the lantern at the crossroads. We're the one lighting the path. We can't walk the path for you, but we can be ahead of you and show you the light on the path. And if that's the light that seems to resonate with you, then follow that path. But if it doesn't resonate with you, then find somebody and the path that you can follow that makes sense to you. What Laura was saying is, so there's really some fundamental principles behind what she's saying, and that is, if you're an empath or a highly sensitive person, or sensitive, which is 1/3 of the population of the planet, and by the way, you are a forerunner, an evolutionary. You're on the front end of the curve of the evolution of consciousness. In other words, what you're experiencing as a sensitive will be what is all of society will experience. So in the evolution of consciousness, every stage that we've gone through, the baby goes through in a period of months what we've gone through in eons of time. So these new children coming through, and those that are sensitives, are the precursors of the evolution of humanity. But so you feel and see and experience more things, which means you are also able to help people see what it is that they need to get out of their own way with regard to your clients and your loved ones. And therefore, you make good healers. And as healers and wellness providers, you've been doing this. Many have been doing this for a long time. But at that some time, they get tested. You get tested by God, by God, really. Which is, how can you stand in your truth? Do you really believe what you're saying to yourself and to others? And this is like the dark night of the soul. This is like Christ in the wilderness. This is like, like Moses in the desert. You get tested, and and you're always tested at the time where you're ready to graduate, but you don't know that. You just really feel overwhelmed with fear. And it's that fear that is challenging you to up-level your energy field, your way of showing up in the world, so that you have the tenacity, the strength, the fortitude to be a sovereign human being and declare your connection to source that is stronger than any force that wants to oppose you. So, for example, Christ in the desert had to say, when he was offered all of the gifts of the world and being king of this dimension, and he had to turn and say, "Get thee behind me, Satan." He had to come to terms with that he was on this crossroads, right? Two ways of going. He could either be overcome by fear and say, okay, I will follow this path and I'll have the riches of the world, or I can follow this path and be one with source consciousness or God, or however you want to call it. And that's the choice he had to make. We all have come to these crossroads in our lives that we need to make this choice. So if you're at one of these crossroads, then the deep clearing will get you prepared to do this download of strength and calling on your power that be who you be. But it sometimes takes some coaching or help, or having those of us that understand or been there before to help you understand how to take back your personal power and stand in your truth. So that's the crossroads, that's the crossroads. The beauty is when you graduate, then you can help other people then do it themselves, right? And this is really what we want to do, is we want to help all empaths, all sensitives, be able to know their gifts, to understand what they are and be able to deliver them to the world as sovereign human beings. So yeah, so that's really what we're talking about. So for 95% of the population, the deep clearing protocol is all you need to do. For the last 5%, there's deeper work that needs to be done to be able to stand in your truth as you're being tested. So thank you for that, Laura.
I had to unmute myself. I had a little bit of dog issues going on.
All right.
But yes, that's what I was in my meditation. What came to me from Source that I asked, what is it that you want me to know today? And that was the first thing, because I had a lot of questions yesterday come in, and I was trying to understand why the comments were coming in that were coming in such a strong manner. And when you trust yourself, then you don't have to get mad at anyone else for what it is that they're saying, because you can trust that what you believe and what you feel in yourself is the truth. And that's really what came down to me to bring me peace within myself about this show can become controversial for some. And Tyhson and I both know that it's not for everyone. And we sometimes talk about things that people don't understand. So ask questions. Go on here and ask your questions. And Tyhson and I will definitely explain ourselves. We don't ever want you to be confused or thinking things in a way that we didn't intend for you to to process it in that way. And we also want to know what you guys want to hear about. Like yesterday, Tyhson was talking about angels and how every day there's a different angel and their names are very long and each letter has a different vibration. I mean, there's so much information about just angels. And I had a lot of feedback. A lot of clients called and said, I want to know more about these angels. So we know that you want to hear about the angels. We know death and dying, spirit guides. You guys want to know more about ascension, Akashic records, court of atonement. What is that all about? And are there other areas of interest out there that you guys want to know more about that you would like Tyhson and I to explain in the best way that we can? So.
All right. So, yeah. So let's give us some feedback on the topics that you'd like to know more about. The topics that will help you become a sovereign human being, stand in your truth and deliver your gifts to the world. That's what we really are here to do. And remember, the whole mission or the vision of this is we're here to help you learn how to heal yourself. And I guess we went down some political rabbit holes yesterday, but what we do is political. So I just want to talk about that from a perspective. When I say political, I'm trying to mean apolitical. What you choose to feed yourself, what you choose to purchase, is a political act. You're making a conscious choice that has a direct effect on other human beings and on the planet. So if our mission is to help you learn how to heal yourself, then we have to talk about the food that you put in your mouth. We have to talk about things that are politically based, right? In order for you to make some conscious decisions. I do want to get out of party politics, right? About whether this side or that side is right or wrong or whatever. I am not here to make those judgments. And I'm not interested in getting caught into whether the light or the dark or into the war between the two, because ultimately, at the highest level of you being a sovereign human being is to be able to understand that you need to hold both of those consciousness simultaneously equal in your mind and in your being, so that there's no judgment. You have discernment. You know what is happening on the planet. You know who's trying to do what to whom, but you understand it's all the way it is because that's the way God created it, and it's part of us all waking up. And so if we're all waking up through this process, then there's nothing to judge. There's just being aware of it so that you can be in the center of it and be able to hold the truth of it, and that will set you free. I know it sounds like a bit of a paradox, like, well, aren't I a light warrior? Shouldn't I get up my sword and shield and fight for the right? Shouldn't I, get on my horse and, raise my banner and, charge? Well, yeah, we've done that lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, and it just creates more war, right? Against the light against the dark, and then the dark wins and the light wins, and we're back and forth. The only way to stop this is stop warring. And the only way to stop warring is to be in the balance between the two. Hopefully that makes sense. So we're open to questions on that or any other questions you want. So the phones are now open. 1-866-369-7464. Give us a call.
And we have some comments, which I enjoy, because I think that this will then direct us in which way we want to take the show today. I had some message this morning from Source, and it was all about trust. That was from Wendy. Again, she got the same in her meditation that I did. And then Eliezer says, Laura, it's so funny. This morning I woke with just so much doubt in myself and not believing in myself. Seems that we had very similar meditative experiences. Correct. And so trusting yourself, trusting God, then the deep cleaning protocol will work more beneficially for you. That's what I got out of it. And I believe that's what Tyhson has been. I think that we talk about it in kind of an offshoot, like when people do the deep cleaning protocol and we're coaching them, I don't think that I've ever said you need to trust yourself. So, but that like makes the whole thing, like it clears everything up as to why these people it wasn't working for them, because all of the people who do trust themselves and do trust God, it really works very easily.
Yeah, I think let me just jump in there and say, being a sovereign human being is trusting your relationship with God. So we have to be careful about saying trusting yourself. I mean, when we say trust yourself, most people say, well, I already got that. I have these beliefs, and I think that I'm right, and I know how to stand up for myself. And if anybody attacks me, I've got my sword and shield, and I can bring in the light warriors, and I can bring my shield and my armor down, and I can cloak myself, and I can do all these things to defend myself. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about becoming one with your true nature. Your true nature is already surrendered. It's already enlightened. It's already arrived, right? The only thing in the way of anybody on this planet being fully enlightened is ourselves. So what we're teaching you is to become a sovereign human being, is to get out of your own way. And so when we say trust yourself, we're really saying trust your relationship with God, with source consciousness. that there are two ways to show up. One is your human mind consciousness, which is all your belief that you have from the moment that you were born onto this planet and the way that you were raised, which is your culture, your tradition, your beliefs, your political system, all the things that you were indoctrinated in school. That's all human mind consciousness about how you should show up and what are the rules to play, and not necessarily play safe or fairly on planet Earth. That's your human, mind consciousness. We're not talking about that. We're talking about being one with source consciousness, which is being one with the divine flow and receiving guidance, which makes you a sovereign human being, because you're not overwhelmed by what's going on around you. You're not knocked off center by the news. You're not overwhelmed by what the political agenda is, or the light against the dark, or whatever. I mean, you do see that. You do have discernment, but you're still rock solid inside of yourself with your relationship to God. So that's what we mean about trusting yourself in your relationship to God.
Right.
Make that a little clearer.
Mm-hmm. And that comes within yourself. It comes as you begin to trust yourself more. You'll understand more of what it is that we're talking about, because sometimes like I talk about ego, and it took me a really long time to understand what ego was. And I told my client yesterday, I said, it's kind of like trying to describe the color blue, or what Beethoven sounds like to someone who's blind or deaf. It's not easy to describe things that are undescribable. And so ego and trusting yourself is something that comes, and the understanding comes as it grows. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think maybe I could put it in a different way, that your ego has one job, that is to keep the body alive. Okay, it is to protect you in this incarnation. And therefore, because it's so strong that our five senses come from our ego-based consciousness, our human nature, we begin to identify with that as who we be. That's who we are. But in actual fact, that's not who we are. That's only who we are in this incarnation. In other words, there's a part of ourselves that's eternal. It's beyond incarnation. It never, it's never born and it never dies. That's what we're talking about. That part of yourself is your sovereign human being. It's the part that's connected to source, that's having a human experience in this body. Okay, and it's not attached to the body in this. I mean, it takes care of the body, it loves the body, it loves the exact excitement of being in this incarnation, but it's not overwhelmed by all that feedback that's coming from being on this planet and this incarnation. It knows that there's far more. It knows that even if he were to die tomorrow, that there's something eternal about who you be. That's what we're talking about. That gives you the sovereignty and freedom to be able to show up on this planet that can be really, really scary with what's going on the planet right now for many, many people. And it allows you to feel safe and secure because you're one with source consciousness. You're always in the right place at the right time. And therefore, you're not overwhelmed by fear. That's what we're talking about getting you to. And it's not that you're banishing your ego. It's not that you're beating it up or anything. It's just saying that, yes, we understand that there's fear and there's shame and there's doubt and there's fear and there's things we need to work on. But we know that that's just our human experience. That's not truly who we be. It's just part of who we be. It's sort of like just one more thing. It's sort of like your Earth suit is like your astronaut's spacesuit for this dimension. That's all it is. Right.
Very well put. So are you afraid to die, Tyhson?
No.
And why? Because I agree with you. I'm not either. Why are you not afraid to die?
Because I've had near-death experiences, and I know that there's far more to that. I've been on the other side and chose to come back. I have many incarnations that I can remember actually having, one of them, which is startling in the sense that I remember being in China, and I was at the end of a beautiful pier or behind a walled compound where I lived, with the Chinese gates and all that, right? And I don't know what century. And I was sitting under a full moon. Oh, I get shivers up my spine, and it was on the end of a beautiful wharf going into the lake, and the moon was full, just full in the sky. It was like it has been the last 3 days here. The full moon, I don't know if anybody's had the experience of the full moon in the last, this one has just been absolutely glorious. I'm awake at 4 a.m, just like in awe of this moon. Anyway, I digress. And I can feel them storming the gates. I know that they're coming, right? And I'm sitting in samadhi, in meditation. I know this is the moment. I know they're coming for me. I'm in samadhi. I'm sitting in full enlightenment in the Buddhist position, and swish, there's the sword and off of my head. So the moment before and the moment after the neck came off the body was one and the same. Okay. It was the death of a body. That's all it was.
Exactly. And so you're not afraid?
No, I mean, yeah, it'd be nice to get my mission done this incarnation so I can help more people become free and clear and understand this. Yeah, and that's what I'm here to do. I mean, this is my mission, is to help you learn how to heal yourself, right? On all levels. That's why I'm here. I mean, but if I'm, brought to a screeching halt sooner than I think, and who do I know? How do I know when it's done, right? I get to graduate. Doesn't mean that I'm done in the sense, if I made a bodhisattva vow, that is, I will keep incarnating until every human being, every blade of grass is enlightened, becomes the Buddha or becomes enlightened. I mean, so I'm here for the long haul, right? It's not this lifetime, it'll be next lifetime or the lifetime after that. So if I make that commitment, then I'm just going to come back and do it all over again, right?
Right. So you're not afraid because you know that that you can come back and you can do it again. I
won't come back and do it again. I'd prefer not to have to go through dirty diapers and then learn all that stuff again in order to get back to this point again. I'd rather, my whole desire is what I've learned at my age, I'd like to pass on to the next generation so that they don't have to go through what I did in order to get to where I am, to know what I know. I'm hoping that they will know it quicker and faster so that we can speed up this evolution of consciousness, because it's evolution of consciousness collectively that will change and transform this planet into heaven on earth. That's what I want. Right. Anything else is totally irrelevant as far as I'm concerned. Who doesn't want to live on heaven on earth right here, right now? I don't know about you, but I think the world's a bit crazy the way it is. I want to see something different. And I'm going to come back until it is. And that's because I love all the animals. I love all the clouds and the trees, and what a glorious planet we live on. But it's pretty crazy right now. I'd like to be part of birthing something new.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you're not afraid to die. You're not afraid to move on to the next transition. Any other comments on that from anyone else out there? There's a little bit of difficulties with some people not being able to hear, or Zoom is frozen. So people are going to log in and come back on. And we're here.
Yeah, you are really the feeding in and out. So if you could shut down everything on your computer, because your bandwidth is really, really low, so you're sort of freezing.
Yeah, I think both of us are.
No, I'm not freezing. I'm totally here. No, I'm just being silly. Yeah, I will do the same. So yeah. So if you want to have a clear message with us or a clear answer, then you can always phone in 1-866-369-7464. I think we might have something in the chat here. Let me just see here. So it says, oh yeah, that was a comment about you waking up. Right. So don't forget, if you're on the show on Zoom, you can always raise your hand, and you can also type in your questions here. So we love questions. Okay, so whilst we're waiting for people to show up, or did you get somebody that you want? Do you have something there, Laura?
No, I was just going to ask another question or continue on with the death and dying and talking more about what it is that, like the transition of death. I was always told by American Indians that if the soul goes west, then it's where it needs to go, and it's basically a very good thing that's going to, I can't remember what they called it. Was it a field of something? They called it something. And if they went east, it was not a good, that was not a good sign. And so for
all paths lead up the mountain. So, some are short paths, some are long paths. So I don't know, east, west, north, south, up, down. I know all paths return home. So I wouldn't worry about the direction. I
was just talking about what happened, what I've experienced.
Oh, okay. Right.
That's all. Is that when my aunt died, the day before she died, she said she was very scared, and we had a long conversation about God and how what I've been told by people that I know that have died, and because they come to me and I can talk to them, they've told me their experience, and I told her that it's that why would she be afraid to go back to God? And she said she just wasn't ready to die yet. She wanted more life. And I said, well, when you die, come to me and let me know if what I'm saying is correct. And the next morning she came to me and she said, oh yeah, yep, what you said was correct. And why didn't you tell me who you really were? And I said, well, would you have believed me anyway? And she laughed. And then my uncle came in, and I'd gone into my living room, and on the west wall, my aunt and uncle walked away. They stopped, they turned to each other, they gave each other a kiss, and then they walked on and they faded out. And it didn't occur to me right away that they had gone west. And so that's my experience with, and the people that come to me always come from the west and leave to the west. And it doesn't matter where I'm at doing this work, it's always the same. That's just my experience.
Right.
Well,
yeah, I don't have any experience that way, and I don't have dead people showing up for me. What I do is, and I know this is going to sound crazy. I know lots of people work with people on the other side, like aunts and uncles and everything like that. For me, it's just with my mom and my dad and people like that, I just bless them on the return path to the light. So I'm there as a guide to make sure that they pass over to the other side. But then I want to let them go. They have their own evolution and consciousness to do on the other side. I don't want them to hang around, well, for me to answer questions. So I discourage that from happening. In other words, I'm really not that open to that concept of, and I'm not saying don't do this. I'm just saying for me, I want my relatives to go on to what they need to do. Hello, welcome to the show, Louis.
Hey, Tyson. Hi, Laura. Very interesting topic.
Yeah.
Regarding that and so on.
Yeah, you've had a bit of experience in that yourself.
We just had my father-in-law pass, and it's been my experience. We lost a child in 1986. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I can.
Okay. We lost a child in 1986. And since that time, very early, we started communicating with him. My wife was he will come into my wife's awareness, and I will communicate with him, as well as my wife's grandma, who has been very present in her life very early. So the experience is that we've always been guided as to what's going on in our lives and so on. We stopped it many years ago, probably 6-7 years, if not more. And one who received my child was my wife's grandma. So she took care of him on the other side. And the way she describes, it's like a paradise where they're at. Mm-hmm. Beautiful place. And, now when my father passed, and my father-in-law passed, he was handed over my son. So in other words, because she was the one closer to my wife, she took care of him. But now that he came, it's like he's more direct lineage. So my wife saw him ascending into the light right away because he was an amazing soul. And that's the way, we finish our existence here based on where we're headed in terms of our lives. If we led a very, I would say, shitty life, we're not into the light, I guess we go into another part, and that's the case depending on the soul's mission. So when I remember Tyhson, I asked about my father who passed like 12 years ago. Will he be able to be into my light team? And he said, no, he's not.
Right.
And that was the same response my wife gave, that he was not ready. So apparently, I do feel he reincarnated, and maybe because the day he died, my granddaughter was born 2 days later.
Right. Well, so let me make a few comments on what you're saying, Louis. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just going to let you go, and then I'm going to talk about what you're talking about because it's hard for people to hear. So I'll do some review about what you're doing.
Bad connection. Really.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for showing up, and what you're saying is really, really interesting. I'll see if I could capture some of it, and you could always jump onto Zoom, or you could type in whether I'm getting your story right or not. So thank you, Louis. So basically what Louis is saying is, first of all, he's from a family that has been on the soul level tight-knit from multi-generational. In other words, there's a group of healers or powerful beings that have chosen to incarnate into a certain cultural tradition from lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. And he's in a culture where there's a lot of curses and a lot of so if I'm angry at you, if I'm angry at Laura, I don't go to Laura and deal with it. I go hire somebody to put a curse on you, right? So it's not a really nice place to be. So you have multi-generational curses that are playing out, and it really is yucky. So what that does is it really puts you and your culture and your family in a very defensive mode about who's doing what to whom. So you're sort of going around like this, trying to protect yourself. And therefore, because the family unit and the soul family is so tight, mm-hmm. that when you pass on to the next level, you're still in that family unit, still doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. Okay, so and if you're a Christian and you believe that you're going to go to heaven with angels and clouds, and I mean, I'm exaggerating, but with angels singing and choirs and all that, guess what? You get to experience that. And if you're, and if you're Islamic and you believe that you're going to meet Muhammad, right, and you're going to have a certain experience from that, from that point of view, that's what you're going to experience. So what I'm trying to tell you is whatever your thought belief is on planet Earth about what you're going to experience in the afterworld, you get to experience that. Why? The question is why? The answer is because you're creating a reality here with every thought, word, deed, and action. You're creating the stage. You're putting the actors in place on your stage. You are creating the world you live in. And guess what? On the other dimension, you're doing the same thing. You're creating the same world with every thought, word, and deed until you wake up either in this dimension or that dimension and say, wait a minute, I'm in charge of all this. If I don't like what's showing up in my life, I can change it. Okay? This is the whole point. So yes, your afterlife is no different than this life. So for example, I'm just going to tell a little short story. So I was working, as an environmentalist, and I was bringing the salmon back to the river where I live. It's called the Salmon River. It has the largest salmon run in the whole Fraser River system. And salmon is really indicative of the whole health of the ecosystem, right? And so we were bringing salmon back to this one river by planting trees along the river to protect it, so there's shade, so the salmon can, lay their eggs and all this stuff. I'm an environmentalist, and so I'm working with a First Nation group, and he's saying, well, he says, I don't know, I talked to my ancestors, and they said you shouldn't be on this land, and blah, 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 and I do ceremony every night. And this is no disrespect to First Nations. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I have one adopted grandmother who's on the other side from First Nations. So First Nations, and following that, I'm a big 6'4" white guy, but I have First Nations behind all that. I've had many First Nations incarnations. My attitude to him is, look, I guess I shouldn't swear on this show, but anyway, how do I put this? I'll try and find the word. If your ancestor was a jerk,
okay,
right?
That's good.
On this plane, why makes you think that he's not a jerk when he's on the other plane, when he's died? So why are you listening to your ancestors? If he was an alcoholic here, he's going to be an alcoholic there. So stop it already. Just because he's your ancestor and he died doesn't mean you need to listen to him, right? So this is a point I'm trying to make. So be careful who you have on your light team, right? Just because they're an ancestor doesn't mean that they're the type of person. And that's what he was saying,
right? When
he, and I think it was his, when he was talking about one of his, I think it was his father-in-law is not at the stage where it would be appropriate for him to be on his light team because he's not there yet. So the point is, just because somebody's dead doesn't mean they're enlightened, okay? If you're not enlightened here, you're not enlightened there, right? If you didn't fix it here, you got to fix it there. And if you didn't fix it there, you get to come back and fix it here. It's just, it ain't no different, one side or the other.
Thank you. I totally 100% agree with Tyhson. Exactly. That's why I will go along sometimes and say to myself, okay, please forgive me for what I just did. I want forgiveness from this because I don't want to go back and relive this again. So please forgive me. Kind of like I'm talking to myself after I've been dead and I have to look at my life and the movie and see how I've treated people and how I've acted and all the things that I've harmed and all of that. I try and do that now so that I can become enlightened and not have to come back. But right. I'm working on it. It's not perfect, but I'm working on it. So Eliezer asked, but how do we practically get to the point of full trust in God and ourselves? What are some practical ways to get to that point of trust? That is a really good question. You want me to answer it?
Yeah, you go for it.
Okay. For myself, I've never not trusted God. But I know that other people have struggled with it. My sister has, and we've had this conversation. And she asked me, how do you have an unwavering trust in God? I don't know. I just do. I just know what I know to be true in that aspect. But how to trust yourself, to trust God, is, to me, is doing what you believe is right and then getting the feedback from it builds that trust. So basically, when I first started doing this, I would go to the grocery store and say, okay, should I buy this candle, truth, yes or no? Will it light my way? Okay. And I would hear yes. So I would buy it and it would do what I had intended it to do, like a watermelon. Is this good? Is this sweet? And will I be happy with this watermelon, truth, yes or no? And then if I got a no, sometimes I would just buy it just to see if my no was right, or if it was yes, was my yes right? That's how I got my trust up, by having parents that were loving and kind, and they would follow through. And so my trust, I think, was built too as a child. How do you do that? Have to find your own way on what it is where you don't trust yourself, and then build it up. And if there are issues in your life, like not trusting that you're not going to get fired, that going to your job every day, doing the best work that you can, and then not being fired will build that trust, right? So it's whatever's in your life, be aware of it, believe that all is well, and then watch as it happens, right? Is that a
Well,
good
let me ask
explanation?
you this. I mean, I love what you're saying. So what's the opposite of trust, or why wouldn't anybody have trust?
Fear.
Exactly. So bingo. So
Thank
what
you.
are you fearing? Because whatever you fear, you're creating. And if you're creating your world with every thought, word, and deed, and you have fear, even one iota of fear, you're creating that fear into reality. It's going to show up and bite your butt. It's a foregone conclusion, right? So if you're having to trust, it means that you have some fear. You're trying to overcome your fear. So you need to go to the root cause of what's the fear. What are you fear of? What's your fear? The biggest fear is dying. The second one, I think, is standing on a stage and delivering a speech. I think another one is, for some people, is standing on top of a mountain and fear of falling over. We all have our fears. What are those fears, and how do we deal with them? Because they are the ones that are limiting us. If we are already enlightened, then we're unlimited. Always have been and always will be. The only way we can limit ourselves is through our false belief, which comes from an ego, which is identifying with your five senses that that's the only reality, which ironically is the basis of scientific revolution or scientific belief system, that if you can't feel it, taste it, replicate it, it couldn't possibly be real. But it's only real for the ego. It's only real for this dimension. So that's number one is, if you need to trust, it means you already have fear. And if you have fear, you're open for intrusions into your energy field. That's why the deep clearing is so important. So yeah, it's great. And when you do the muscle testing, like Laura was saying, is this watermelon good for me or not? That's really a good place to start. But remember, that question you're asking is from your human body. It's still from your ego. It's from this watermelon good to feed this body in this lifetime. What we're teaching you is don't ask your questions from the level of your body unless you need that information from your body's point of view or your ego's point of view. Ask the question with regard to your connection to the source. That's why we say, I only want the answer to my question from source consciousness, from my higher self connected to source. That's where you begin to trust source, because the more you do that and you follow through, the more amazing results that you get. And then when you don't and you know better and you say, oh no, I'm not going to listen to that, then you hit the wall and it hurts. So you say, maybe I'm not going to do that again. Maybe I'm going to trust my guidance again. So it's really comes from the hard knocks of life. You need to test this out. So this is taking the scientific testing modality of replication, taking it out of the physical ego world of the human mind consciousness and putting it into the spiritual dimension of source consciousness and testing it the same way. If I do this connected to source, can I get the results that I believe that I'll get? And the answer is yes. Then I can trust that to do it more. And then I have no fear, because now I know that it works beyond a shadow of doubt. Therefore,
And I want you to think back too, Tyhson, to the clients where the de-clearing protocol where you had problems. They were all people who mistrusted themselves.
Absolutely.
The ones that I still have issues with are the one. In fact, I had one today. I did a healing on one of my clients this morning, and she said, "Is this really going to work?" And I was like, "Really? Really? Okay. I'm like, why do you ask me to do something if you don't trust that I can do it?
Or why do you do the deep clearing protocol if you don't trust the results?"
And she is doing the deep cleaning protocol. And guess what keeps happening? She keeps getting these reoccurring things that happen. And what happened after that is I went and I meditated and I figured out what God said. It's all about trust. And that's why we're having this conversation, because she doesn't trust. The people that I keep having issues with, they don't trust themselves. They don't trust God. And therefore, this too, this won't work for that one client. Oh, I don't know. It won't work. It won't work. And I was like, that was last night. And she talked to me. I gave up on the pendulum. It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Yeah, it's sort of like saying my foot hurts, because I shot myself in the foot.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to heal it. Oh, by the way, I shot myself in the foot again, and it still hurts. I mean, it's like, I love my Sarah. My Sarah always plants her seeds in the garden. And she said, they're not working. They're not working. They're not going to come up. I said, Sarah, you planted the seeds. All you have to do is water them, and they'll come. Oh, no, they're not working. Said, Sarah, don't dig up the seeds to see if they're growing. I mean, I'm joking with her, but that's what we want. That's what we just get into that modality that we want to dig up the seeds to see if they're growing, and we destroy the whole thing that we're trying to do. So you got to get out of that. If you're giving it to God, give it to God, right? You can't sort of half give it to God and say, oh, well, wait a minute, I don't know if God's really doing a good job. I might be able to do it better. Let me just check out and let me interfere with God here. And, God, you just don't have that right. And then I'm wondering why I don't believe in God. Well, you never ever turned it over to God in the first place,
Never trusted God fully. Never.
Now, I just want to say a few things about God. When I think about God, I have a hard time with that concept. I'm more likely to say source consciousness. I'm more likely to say divine mother, because I like the energy of a mother. I like the feeling of being loved and taken care of. When I think of God and what I was taught, or what I learned in the Bible, I don't know if I want to have a relationship with that concept of God. So it took me a long time to come to terms with what the hell do you mean by God, right? So, the closest I could ever get to it as a kid is go sit in nature. I knew something was there ineffable. I knew there's something indescribable. I knew something that was there that nourished me, that I felt good, that I felt embraced, that I felt loved. And I was never scared of the animals or anything around me. I just felt so at one, that there was nobody bothering me or telling me that I was this or that, or keep my mouth shut or straighten up or get a life or whatever it was, right? When I was in nature, I could just be me, and I was embraced by nature. And if I was really, really, really still, animals would come to me.
Thank you.
It was amazing. It was amazing. I had an incredible experience. Me and the animal, that was my God. That was the first step for me.
Exactly. I had my dog got sick, and I would tell my parents before the dog would actually show signs. My mom would say, every time you start talking about that dog being sick, it costs me money, and there's nothing wrong with the dog. And then all of a sudden there'd be something wrong with the dog. Or my dad and I were fishing, and I was like, all the fish are right here. And he'd be like, Laura, you can't drop your line right by the boat. And I did anyway, because that was me always doing what I was told not to do. And boom, I'd start pulling them up one after the other. And he was like, how do you know that? And I'm like, because I can feel the fish, Dad. They're all right here. There's like a whole pool of them right below me. How do you know that? Because I was aware of who, and I can't, people ask me now, how do you know what you know? I don't know. I just know.
Just know.
Therefore, there's that trust in God. I know, and I don't listen to what other people say. I never have, and I never will. My mom told me one time, Laura, you can't wear those shoes to church. And I said, why? Because people are looking at those shoes. Those shoes are filthy. And I said, Mom, nobody's looking at my shoes. Nobody cares what shoes I'm wearing. And she said, yes, they are. And I said, Mom, look up instead of looking down. Look up. People look up. They don't look down. So look up. Get it?
Mm-hmm.
And I wore my shoes that I wanted.
They're dirty, filthy shoes.
And guess what? I'm still here. But they all.
I didn't expect you, Dad.
I would still say that my whole community thinks I'm bad.
Yeah, she showed up at church with dirty shoes. Wow, I didn't know the inside story about you.
So here we have some other things here that people have been saying. Karen says it would be interesting to hear if others have had an experience with where their soul left their body temporarily. Eliezer said, you hit the nail on the head. I have deep fear. Thank you. So what is the real fear? Karen asks, what is real fear? Well, only you can answer that.
Well, the biggest fear for everybody is fear of death. And, the only other thing that's in the way, well, there's actually three things is, do I want control? Do I feel that I'm out of control? Or I'm fear that I can't be heard. So,
yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't be seen. Right.
Yep. Or that what I'm saying will be looked at upon as
right. That I'll be locked up if anybody figures out what's going on in my head. Those are the big fears, but the biggest one is the fear of death. So,
absolutely.
The littler ones are the fear of the ego is, oh, poor me, nobody sees me, right? Right. And in fact, the not being seen is the biggest reason why we don't succeed in our businesses and the things that we want to promote, because we're afraid of actually being seen, right? So it's sort of like shooting yourself in the foot again. Mm-hmm. We are our biggest critic. We are the ones that are in our own way. And anybody else who seems to be in your way is there to point out the fact that you're in your own way.
Right. So that's why I asked you if you were afraid of dying, because I know that that's the biggest thing, the biggest fear. My best friend last night was asked by somebody, okay, if you had to choose one person to get COVID-19, who would you choose? And I said, okay, I did. Now can we go back to work? And she said, she was mad at me. Well, who would you pick? Who would you pick? And I said, I would pick me, first of all, because I'm not afraid of being sick, because I know my body can come back to health. And two, I'm not afraid of dying. In fact, I say bring it, because humanity is insane right now. So bring it to me. Maybe that is where I will find my peace.
All right, we're at the top of the hour. I'm just going to jump in, because that's a great segue into the fact that on Friday at 10 o'clock, from 10 to 11:30, I'm going to be talking about how to clear viruses or clear any vaccine or any flu shots that you may have been taken, you, your loved ones, or your clients, okay? Because we want to get all this stuff out of your body. We want to also teach you how to increase your immune system so you can stay out of fear, right? So that is coming up. So
and we can really do that. This really works. And this really works.
Absolutely. If you believe it.
No fear.
Yeah, if you don't believe it, then don't show up, right? Why spend the money? Okay, so we're at the top of the hour, and I have to run, but is there one more question? You look like you're trying to squeeze in one more.
It's not really a question, it's a comment. It says, Lisa Share says, when I left my previous stressful life, I could start seeing the animals express their feelings. She has lots and lots of horses. But I had to shed all the negative around me in order for her to be able to see that within her animals. Isn't that amazing? So
it is amazing. It is amazing. Yeah, if you really want, if a dog will always tell you how you're doing, right? If you're not in your true nature, if you're not settled, the dog is going to go. When you calm down, or even the bear is going to get freaked out about you. But if you're still and in your true nature, the bear is going to look at you and say, or the deer is going to stop on the side of the road and look at you and, and you're going to be curious, right? Or the marmot's going to come out of its hole and go, oh, a human, he's on the same wavelength as me. They're going to get excited. This is what heaven and earth is all about. It's when you're that one with the animals, right, that you can have a new relationship with them.
And right here, she says that once you learn to let go of all material things and your body is beyond this planet, fear of death does not exist.
Right. Fear of death does not exist. So we'll end it there. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. We'll back same time, same place tomorrow morning. Until then, have a great day. Bye for now.
Bye.
For quality online wellness products, courses, and services, visit our sponsors, thewellnessstore.ca and the Extraordinary Healing Arts Academy located at thewellnessacademy.ca. To stay in touch, visit us at thewellnessshow.ca. And until next time, be healthy, wealthy, and wise.